If you were just listening to my voice, how would you know that it's really me and not some, say, technology that's like deep faking me? How do you know?
Well, mostly because if it was a technology faking you, you'd sound a lot smarter.
This is true. This is true. I have no comeback to that at all. Uh, but but I was wondering about deep fakes, and because nothing is real anymore, and I did discover that there is technology out there, believe it or not, that can fake people. Did you know that? Did you hear about this deep fake thing?
What?
No,
No, I've never. What
seriously.
is a deepfake? What is it?
It's well, I actually have the person who knows the most about this than any one of us. So
Really?
yes, and I'm
Is this
going.
like deepfake, deep throat, like Richard Nixon's person that turned, Watergate informant, like
Well,
that?
yes and no. Richard Nixon does play a part of this, and I will explain it all in just one moment.
Oh,
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Marketing Geeks. Awesome. Theme song is playing.
no comeback, huh? No comeback?
No, man, you nailed it.
Maybe you need to drink from your awesome bottle. You have this huge bottle.
Okay, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for being part of the Marketing Geeks. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And today's guest is actually the guy who was responsible for some of the sounds that you have heard that are not the sounds that you have heard. In fact, I'll get into that in a second. And Justin, why don't you tell us who our guest is today?
Yeah, this is an exciting one. So, I mean, if you've been watching like 60 Minutes or some of these shows where they've talked about how presidents can be faked now, I think that if you may have seen clips of Obama's voice being mimicked and Trump's voice being mimicked. Well, we have the guy behind the tech. Today, we're joined by Alex Serdiuk, who has been building a voice cloning company called Respeacher, along with his co-founders for more than 3 years. And they achieved the goal of making a high-quality synthesized speech to be used on the big screen in Hollywood. So please welcome to the show, Alex Serdiuk. Thank you for being on the show. How are you today?
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me here.
Wow, it's a pleasure. So first of all, I found out about your company I think last year, and this was where there was a short film that was made. It was called "In the Event of a Moon Disaster," where they deep faked Richard Nixon reading the speech of the Apollo mission if it failed. He had one handy just in case anything went wrong, and luckily, thank goodness, it was never read. But they were able to deep fake his voice. I'm going to play that clip right now. So here is a clip from that short film.
Good evening, my fellow Americans. Fate has ordained that the men who went to the moon to explore in peace will stay on the moon to rest in peace. For every human being who looks up at the moon in the nights to come will know that there is some corner of another world that is forever mankind. Good night.
So that was incredible, because if you listen to that, it really sounds like Richard Nixon, and if you didn't know better, it looks like that's the event that happened in history. First of all, can you tell us a little bit about how you ended up making this film? But I want to go back even further, and how did you end up being part of this company?
Yeah, if you start with my own story, I've been interested in doing some some cool stuff, some entrepreneurship stuff for like 10 years or so. And before starting respeacher for more than like 5 years, I've been working in business that's close to data science and big data as we know it. But it turned to be quite boring, because when you need to just use numbers to improve some marketing campaigns for banks, for big companies, it might be not something you want to do for like a long period in your life. And we found this idea along with Dmitro and Grant, my co-founders, the idea of being able to change one voice to the voice of another particular person. And we started to play around with that, and we ended up doing some very simple prototype that we played on a big conference here in Ukraine. And we resurrected a singer who passed away just a year before we did that. An audience started to tweet that this guy is alive. So it gave us some boost, and we started to speak to folks we thought would be interested in this kind of tool, and ended up founding the company in 2018, early 2018. And since that, we've been pushing hard on the technology side, trying to keep the technology on that level where it would be indistinguishable for listener, if the voice was synthesized.
What percentage, like, if you compared like two audio files, let's say you compared a source file of the actual speaker to the file that respeacher is running, have you been able to compare like what, like percentage wise, like how similar the audio comes out or anything like that? Is there something that shows that just how close you've gotten to replicating that speech?
Yeah, it's quite tricky about our technology and about the voice technologies at all, because there is not like a simple number you can calculate to say how accurate it is. You just need to listen, and you need to listen how natural it is. You need to listen how precise it is. You need to listen whether there are some artifacts in this sound, and that could be done by humans. And to get to a good number, we'd need to handle like a huge survey where different people would be listening to that. And we haven't done that. So we were listening to that, our clients were listening to that. And in some of our projects, like millions of listeners of big movies had a chance to take a listen.
Now, how much source material do you need to replicate a voice? So like if we went to like archives of audio of somebody speaking, like how long of an audio clip are you going to need to then turn that around into a voice that can be replicated?
Yeah, we typically ask for 60 minutes, 1 hour of speech, and that should be a clean speech, as good as possible. But sometimes we have to deal with smaller audio data sets, and that always introduces some challenges. 1 hour is like to be on the safe side.
So, and I just want to mention now to our audience that you recently had a major project that was just released, and from what I understand, you can't really talk about it, but I can, so you can confirm or deny. But if you have seen The Mandalorian, there's a giant surprise at the end when a certain hero shows up and says a bit of dialogue, and that is the voice, but not the actor. And this was your technology that actually they used to make this come to life. Is this correct?
I have quite limited rights to be talking about this project, but there is publicly available information that respeacher was credited. And that's all I can say so far.
So this
fair enough.
Yeah, and this is really amazing because to me this is like a game changer, because it's one thing, and I've made a lot of videos in my day, and you can get away with a crappy looking footage, but the sound to me is far more important. And so if you can nail the sound and nail the rhythm and the cadence of somebody, then it is a game changer. So I want to just go back a little bit and ask you, how did you, like, why of all the things that you could have found, pursued, why was this the thing that you pursued to do deep fake audio?
It's quite a complicated question, but I guess the one part of the answer would be that it's a very exciting and complicated technical task that excited my technical co-founders, and that led us to get together a huge team, a good team of sound professionals and data science professionals who are able to do like a very heavy R&D in that particular regard. But also it's somehow a game changer in content creation. It's a game changer in the way how we humans were using our voice for ages. So that's quite exciting from the point of view of adopting some new advances of technology to multiple markets, not just content creation.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about deepfakes on the show, but there's a few things that I found really interesting. First of all, the way that you and I connected was through LinkedIn, because you're one of the chief people behind the technology, but also you're doing the marketing. So how are you marketing this product, and how, like, to get somebody to actually purchase from you? I mean, it's one thing to have, say, a famous Jedi show up on screen, and then, they don't want you to really talk about it. But it's another thing to actually use it from a more practical purpose, because it's not like, I mean, obviously you're going to get a lot more work through this, but what are the things that you are reaching out to people? How did you reach out to me, and how are you marketing this to the general public?
So what we're actually doing here at respeacher, we do B2B marketing, and it's not like a huge marketing strategy behind that, because technology is quite heavy, and we have to be targeting on high profile projects and enterprise level projects where there is a budget behind that, so it can accommodate our technology to be a part of it. We do some cold reach out, and we use LinkedIn for that. We use email for that. That's not the biggest part of what's going on in terms of leads. I guess we do put a lot of efforts to educate society about our technology and educate sound professional folks, producers, directors, that this type of technology already exists, because we have to deal with adoption curve. And most of the folks, while we are in the very beginning of the adoption curve, they don't know that it's possible to replicate someone's voice where it would be indistinguishable for a listener.
So what are some of the other use cases for this? Like, I mean, we talked about using it in Hollywood. It can be done to bring people back to life, like a musician or an actor or famous actress. But what are some other use cases? I guess you were mentioning kind of content production. So is that like it could read the blogs for you? So you could have like a nice voice reading blogs. Is that another thing, or how do you envision the usage of this from a wider scale?
Yeah, so there are some like edge use cases where we talk about resurrection or de-aging projects, where we need to bring people from the past. But there is wider usage in content creation when you need to pick up some lines narrated by an actor who is not available or who is very high demand actor, and it's quite hard to get them into studio, to schedule them, to make them read these lines, to match the lip sync, and that's actually boring work. So it could be done by someone else in much simpler arrangement in terms of time and in terms of costs. We can also enable one person in the studio speak multiple voices, and that brings more flexibility around voiceover in general. So if you have just one good voice actor who speaks 5 different voices, you can voiceover the whole piece, the whole game, or the whole animation much faster and more efficient in terms of costs.
Do you envision like licensing out like people's rights maybe? So like if there's an actor with a great voice like Christopher Walken or like a Sean Connery or a William Shatner or someone like that has like a unique stylistic voice, would you envision that could possibly be something that would be licensed out so that you would have the technology, somebody would pay for the rights to use that on a single commercial project or something like that? Is that potentially something that might happen?
Yeah, we do, and that should happen quite soon, like in a year or two. And we actually work on launching a new product for respeacher. I mean, for all these 3 years where we worked with our technology, we had to work on one-off projects with studios where they need a particular voice, and we just launched the project particularly for them, making sure that they have all the rights to use the voice and making sure that our technology is not misused. But then we understood that the tech gives enables much bigger range of content creators and sound professionals. And we decided to do what we call a voice marketplace. So that's a new tool that would allow one user speak in multiple voices, and we start with the voices we generate, we create them. So we learned how to mix voices, so they do not belong to a particular human, but they sound like a human. And what you can do, you can just use this system to voice over the piece of content in different voices. And the next stage for this type of voice marketplace we are creating would be adding voices of real people. That could be like famous people who consent to let us use their voice. But there is some complicatedness in that regard, because we would need to build few more layers. There would be additional approval layer for owner of the voice, for IP owner, and there would be additional layer of compensation, because they would need to be compensated. So that makes it harder to launch from the very beginning. That's why we start with mixed voices, with voice plans from the very beginning.
Probably a bigger market, though. There's probably a bigger market for celebrity voices, but it's interesting because they have that website, thispersondoesnotexist.com, which is it'll use AI to create a face that doesn't exist on the planet. And now you're talking about like creating voices that don't exist on the planet. So pretty soon we'll be able to create entire characters and unique voices and faces that do not exist. And that's the future. That's the future, ladies and gentlemen.
So I've got a couple of questions here. First of all, okay, so you state right on the website that you cannot use any voice that is not. If you go to respeacher.com, there it is. You cannot use any voice that does not have consent, right? But let's say hypothetically that I want to use like a Morgan Freeman voice, right? So I get a Morgan Freeman imitator to map their voice, and then I'm able to get consent from the Morgan Freeman imitator. Does that count? Am I able to get away with that?
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about such types of projects, we deal with like different levels of protection of IP of a particular person. So there is like copyright, where we can use or we cannot use a particular material to train the system. But there is also rights of publicity and rights of private life. And if you are saying that this voice belongs to Morgan Freeman, it's not a fair play, because you do not have consent from Morgan Freeman, you have consent from another person. So if we have consent from another person and you're not stating that this voice belongs to Morgan Freeman, it's all right.
So how, I mean, because we also get into some other tricky areas here, because, we just witnessed this event that happened in the U.S. Capitol today, and the president, implored people to go and march, and I will march with you, and they did. And so what would happen if this technology gets into the wrong hands? Because right now you have the technology, but somewhere there are people who are also making this type of technology. So how do you foresee the future of how this technology will be used? And are you coming up with something that you can verify whether or not something is a deep fake?
Yeah, so it would obviously fall in the wrong hands at some point, because people develop technologies and technologies become better and better. To make sure that we are prepared and we are protected to some extent from the threats that such technologies can bring, there are a few ways we can do things. We can educate society that these technologies exist. We can develop detecting algorithms for our particular technology, so we can easily tell respeacher generated content from non-respeacher generated content. But also there is an engine that should detect deepfake content better, should be developed by huge companies that own content and that own spread of the content, like Facebook or Microsoft, where and we are happy to be a part of that. We are happy to provide all the data sets we can generate to make this deepfake detectors better. But we still need to think about this technology as not something brand new, because we can compare that to printing press. And when printing press appeared, everyone believed to everything that was typed, right? That was printed. And now it's not the case. When TV appeared, everyone were believing to what's being said there. Now it's not the case. And even if you look much earlier, we can say that rumors are like deepfakes, because people were used to say not truth, not a trust. And in that regard, that's just all about how we deal with information and how we treat information we receive. So we need to put more efforts in educating the society about threats of deepfakes.
Yeah, I mean that's really the moral issue in a big way, because we're moving into this realm of not being able to tell what is real anymore. If what is real, what is fake. It used to be that the recording, the tapes would tell all, or the video would show that this is really happening. It's hard to trust anything, and that's. I feel one of the problems, especially in politics, is that there's this apathy of like, well, it's just fake news. You don't know what to believe anymore. And so, you on the one hand, you have, and I agree with you. It's, you just have a tool. It's how you use the tool that really depends on whether or not it's good or bad. But what are the kind of the more philosophical things that you've had to wrestle with by unleashing this technology into the world?
Yeah, I guess the biggest holistic problem we have to deal with is the IP, the actual ownership of someone's IP, and the misinformation as a concept in general. And with the second one, we can fight. The first one is protected to some extent, and it's actually protected well. So if people use someone's identity to say something or to do something that this particular person never did, that would be prosecuted. Mm-hmm. So it's not legal.
Yeah, but how do you do that also if you're, because right now you're in a different country, right? And so am I, and so is Justin. So how would that be pursued? Or if it's just like somebody creates a deep fake that's just released onto like 8chan, or there's trolls who are just causing mayhem with it. Like, how do you put the genie back in the bottle, or can you?
I lost you for a second. Can you say it again?
Yeah, I said, how do you put the genie back in the bottle if you have somebody who's like a troll who's just putting something out onto like 8chan and just creating mayhem with the technology? Like, yes, in an ideal world, there's rules and laws that protect individuals, but we're living in a world where there's a lot of people who are nefarious actors. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I would say that genie is out of the bottle for quite a long time, and it's not just about deepfake technologies. It's just about lie as a general concept. And deepfake technology is just a tool that could be used for lying, right? So we should treat it like one additional tool, and we should try to control it to the extent that society can control it. But also we should understand the environment around us, the media around us, through skepticism. We should think whether it's real or not, and that's what we can do.
So yeah. I have a question about the way that these are recorded. So, do you have a voice actor first that's mapping it out with certain inflection, and then you're kind of mapping the other person's voice on top of that? So you have someone that reads it, does the proper inflections, things like that, or are you generating those inflections based on what's typed and is using some kind of machine learning? How does that work when you're creating speech? Is it more machine learning, or is it more of mapping over somebody else's voice?
Yeah, there are two types of technologies which you can use for synthesized speech. The first type is text-to-speech technologies, and there are many of them when the speech is generated from text. It's handy, it's fast, but it has some obvious limitations, like it doesn't sound natural, and it doesn't know where to take emotions from. our technology is speech-to-speech, so it's like subdomain for that text. And what we basically do, we compare two voices, two timbres, and our technology learns what's the difference between these two voices, and then it can convert speech of one person to the speech of another person. And what it does, it just changes the timbre. It takes all the emotional information from speaker, from human, and that means that if you want someone to act in the voice of a particular person, this someone, source actor for us, should perform in the way as this particular person would be performing, like say the stuff in the same pace, use the same like language, use same emphases, all this kind of stuff.
So if you do like Christopher Walken, you've got to do the same cadence as Christopher Walken because the deep fake technology, the respeecher, will not be able to reproduce that. But so you'll have to have somebody who understands how the rhythm of somebody talks first, right?
So you're giving impersonators a newfound employment opportunity, is what you're saying.
Yeah, basically they should impersonate the way of speaking, and that's it. And we take care of the voice itself.
So, and generally, you said you need about 60 minutes worth of content. Once that's uploaded, then how long does it take to actually map out that particular voice, the voice recognition technology so it can be used by someone else?
Yeah, so we basically need two voices. We need voice of a target person, someone you try to impersonate, and voice of a source actor who would be driving this voice. And once we have all this data, we need to clean it up. We need to split it, and it takes from 7 days, depending on the complexity of the data. And after that, we start training. And current model we use, it takes from 2 to 3 weeks to train, to understand this difference between voices. And only after that, it's ready to do conversions itself. Wow. And conversions are being done faster, much faster. So it takes like minutes to convert a single line. However, it's quite far from real time, as you can tell.
So, and are you currently in R&D to make that, speed up that process, or is it something that is still, you're limited by the technology, by the computers themselves?
It's not about the limitation of computer power. So adding more GPUs would not make it work faster. But we do have a bunch of R&D streams to speedify it in terms of training and in terms of inference. And on the inference side, we actually have some prototypes that work below the second, so it can work fast. However, we have to deal with the problem of robustness because our tech can do some mistakes, and that would be like a small pronunciation errors. But these errors are not acceptable when you speak online, when you change your voice online. And that's why we need to solve this problem first. And then we are almost ready to go to real time on the inference part. But training would still take some time.
So right now as a company, is most of your revenue coming from like these Hollywood projects, or how is your company making money right now? Is it like mostly seeking out like those type of projects, not to get into specifics, but like what type of clients are kind of keeping your business afloat? Yeah,
so these are film studios that create films, feature films, documentaries. These are animation studios that do voiceover, video game companies. They also do voiceover. There are dubbing companies. We simplify some process. And so far, this is like content creators we are focused on. There are a few marketing agencies we start to work with on few exciting projects, but they are also fall into this bucket of content creators. With the new tool, with the voice marketplace, we want to cover wider range of users, and that would be not just B-level users where it's like big studios. It could be indie game developer who can voice over the whole game using their own voice, just change it to multiple voices from the system.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So
one more question on that end. So Oh, actually, Anders, go ahead. I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, sorry. So and this was one of the things I wanted to that kind of got me interested in this, because I'm working on some podcast projects right now, and I was thinking, well, I might have to hire some voice actors, and maybe, but then when I learned about this technology. And the voice marketplace, I thought, wow, I could actually do an entire cast of characters and just have my own voice being the puppet master behind them. Can you explain a little bit about the marketplace concept and how you're putting it together, how it's going to be available, kind of what the use cases are for that specific type of thing?
Yeah, so the voice marketplace uses the same technology under the hood. There are one big limitation: we do not let users introduce new target voices to the technology, because that's the way how we protect our technology from any possible misuse. So we have some voices that are pre-trained that we created, and also soon we will be adding more and more voices in more languages, and even some voices that do belong to people, as we talked earlier. And user, after providing a sample of their voice and going through like some short waiting period where we need to adapt our system to the user's voice, can just open the tool, that's a web browser tool, say the phrase, wait for some time, get it converted to any of the voices they have access to, download the phrase, mix it into the piece they're creating, and do as many takes as they want. And that's useful not for just content creators like indie folks or dubbing studios that can use one actor up the whole movie in different voices. It's also useful for sound professionals, and these sound professionals often face problems when they need to catch up some lines for non-crucial characters. When they need to do wall or loop groups, it's like a crowd that you hear on the background. And they usually used to invite people to the studio and record this stuff. But now they can just record different phrases, get it converted to different voices, and put it on background just in 1 hour in the studio, being done by one man.
Is that marketplace live right now? Is that something?
It's currently in private beta, and we have private beta testers from both buckets. So there are some indie developers and there are some sound professionals. We are collecting feedback, and we will be doing that for a few more weeks. And after that, we see what feedback like, and there is like some bug reports. We need to fix some stuff, and we hope to go live with the voice marketplace in February.
So what's going to be the price point on that? If somebody wanted to sign up and be able to utilize those different voices, how many different voices do they have access to, and what are you charging for that?
Yeah, they would have access on the initial stage to a dozen of voices at least. So we run beta with 10 voices, and pricing structure would be subscription based. So it would be like monthly payment. We don't know what limits we need to put there in terms of pricing. And that's like a question we ask our beta testers, how they use that, what load they put on our system. But in general, that would be comparable to some professional sound tools people are used to use in studios. So it would fall somewhere in between like $100 to $1,000 per month for single subscription.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I could see so many use cases for that, especially like an indie developer doing different types of audio projects. And of course, if I wanted to train my own voice, then that would be a lot more. Have you done your own voice? Do you have a sound profile of your own voice that somebody can deepfake?
Actually, I'm not, and the reason I am not because I have quite significant accent, as you might have heard. So yeah, my co-founders, they do have their voice, and we do demos in their voices. I'm not just there yet.
So what kind of other uses, like looking into the future, where do you see kind of the other places that you might be able to use this technology? And especially like if I'm using it as a marketer, where can I use this technology? Where do you see it being a good use case?
Yeah, so there are some cool use cases in marketing we explored, and that's all about scaling high demand actors or high demand personalities. Could be some athletes where marketers need to create a lot of granular pieces of advertisement, and they cannot get this person in the studio to do all this amount of work, and that could be done by other people, by multiple people. So it's ability to scale some like voice of brand, face of brand, all this kind of stuff. But also we target at some point to real-time applications of voice cloning, including accent conversion. And that would be in call centers, where the offshore call center can talk to clients from a particular country with eliminated accent or with one generic voice that belongs to brands. So every call center operator talks in one voice. But also it would be a cool tool, like a plugin for Zoom, where I can change my accent to the accent that would be more understandable for Americans, for example.
I don't know. I want your accent. I want a Zoom plugin where I just have your accent. That would be awesome.
That would be real-time conversion, though. Is that what you said? So you're working on real-time conversion to eliminate accents. That's amazing.
That is.
Or depending on whose show you're on. Let's say you're on a podcast. Maybe if I'm on a podcast in Australia or something, maybe I want my Aussie accent, which I don't have. So that's a pretty interesting use case. Okay. Now, what about like voiceovers for animations or explainer videos, things like that? Do you see that being also just a way of kind of eliminating the need for a voice actor, so you could just kind of get it like a nice, deep, resonant voice through your software instead of having to hire like your traditional voice actor, even if it's doesn't have to be like a famous person, but just like a common voice actor voice, like movie guy voice?
Yeah, actually, our technology keeps voice actors in the loop because they still need to perform. And it enables voice actors to some extent because they can speak not in only one voice they were born with, but with multiple voices, or even in the voice they used to have when they were like 20 years ago, something like that. These de-aging features, they're quite cool. So yeah, it's just changing the way how people were doing voiceover for many years, eliminating some significant problems of getting a particular person in a particular place in the front of microphone to do some work. So we can scale voices and we can get more flexibility in voiceover. And that applies to the whole content creation industry.
It's almost like wearing a voice outfit, like you're wearing a voice suit when you, like a voice costume, if you will.
Yeah.
I had a question going back. Andros asked you a while ago about like how you were marketing some of this stuff, but I'm curious, when you were marketing to the Hollywood studios and that industry in specific, were you having to do cold outreach to them? Were they finding you because you were featured in various high profile outlets like magazines or things like that? Or how did you get your name out to like big studios as a smaller kind of startup company to get that break, to kind of get a breakthrough where you get to be involved in a major project?
Yeah, it's partly cold outreach that actually works. I mean, people know that great technologies are being created all over the world, so people are quite open about exploring new technologies. But also that's about bringing professional community attention to the existence of such technologies. So we did demos for biggest sound society in Hollywood, MPSC. We did the same demo for AMPS, that's Audio Society in Europe. We are planning to do more of that. We were part of some festivals. We were appearing at some conferences where we talked about technology, and then some leads appeared. Also, it helps to get more credibility in this market. It helps to get in credits of some movies and put some logos on the website. It's not that easy with big Hollywood studios. as you might imagine. It's a long process, but it's worth doing that because this kind of credibility helps market it better. Also, respeacher was a part of a big American accelerator called Techstars, and that was joint program with Comcast and BC Universal. We went through previous year, and that helped us too.
Now, were you doing cold email or cold calling when you did the outreach? And then were you then like linking to footage of your of being at those different conferences and like being on stage in your demonstrations? Were you linking to that as social proof, or like what did the cold outreach kind of look like when you reached out to these videos?
It's more texting. It's more just sending a short demo of our technology you can see on our website, and usually people catch up with that because they see that someone can speak in the voice of another person, and it sounds very natural, unlike they heard in many text-to-speech outputs.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that I found so interesting about the whole project, especially if you go onto the website, which is respeacher.com. And I have it up here. You can actually see a demo of it, and I guess it's one of your. I'm not sure if it's one of your founders, but he shows how he speaks in his original voice, and then it's mapped to Obama's voice, and it's uncanny. I mean, the way that it works is absolutely. You would never know if you called somebody with this voice as Obama, they would really think that Obama was calling them. So I think of a lot of great practical jokes I can play on Mike Pence right now, which would be fantastic.
We don't want the technology in the wrong hands, Andres.
Well, give it to me, and that won't happen if you don't. So moving forward into the future, because you just had this huge project that you can't talk about, but there was a Jedi involved in a TV show that was on a huge streaming channel. That's all I can say. And
may have involved a Mandalorian something.
It could be a woman DeLorean. We don't know, but.
Yeah.
So moving forward, what other kind of projects do you see kind of coming into your orbit?
Yeah, so we're actually doing something cool right now, which involves resurrection of the voice of a famous person, and hopefully I would be able to share some news in February regarding this project when it goes air. We have some projects on animation side. And there are like different use cases of our technology. So you can use respeacher for voiceover in storyboards in much easier way, where you can just voiceover it in different voices to get more feelings on how this storyboard in animation sounds and make better decisions based on that. We are doing something in documentary field, and there are quite a few projects in documentaries because I mean, the use cases are obvious. There's a huge trend that goes right now with all these VTubers or virtual influencers that would be like creatures, like humans that do not exist, right? So they're being drawn, and they need to have voice. And they need to have one voice that would stay with them for a while. And we can create that voice, and we are actually doing some stuff in that direction too. We do start working with gaming studios, and that's the same use case, voiceover for games, which is quite cool because they need a lot of voiceover, and it's much more than in films. And in cases when they need particular voice or high demand voice, they face much more challenges compared to film studios.
That's really cool. I think gaming is a great industry to get involved with your tech. I did want to also kind of ask about bringing it back to marketing one last time, because you have the marketplace, which is going to be coming live in the next few months, most likely. And what do you, I mean, for that type of marketing, that's a little bit different. You're going to a broader audience. I mean, are you focusing, I mean, I know you're doing this podcast interview, which is probably the best decision you've ever made in your life.
Hands down.
But how else, besides being on the Marketing Geeks podcast, are you kind of bringing awareness to this topic? Are you writing articles? Are you getting featured in top magazines? Are you doing TV time? Are you still doing conferences, like that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so we basically talk to our users, because over this time, over these 3 years, we had managed to meet a lot of people from both like sound professional and content creation side. And majority of these people were not involved into projects with us. And most of them had some significant budget limitations, because it did not worth it to use respeacher for their particular usage. And Voice Marketplace can cover many of these use cases. So what we are doing right now, we are bringing conversations with these people back. We are telling them that we are releasing this new tool they were asking for a long time. And I guess for like half a year, we would be growing with Voice Marketplace organically, because there are some technology catch-ups we need to do. We need to make it stable. We need to make it be able to handle big load, as well as we need to add voices. And adding voices takes time, especially in different languages. So we need to collect these voices. We need to get permissions. We need to mix the voice blends that audience requires. So that would be an ongoing process. And marketing would start a bit later, because for the launch, I guess we have enough subscription list. We are growing that, but we are not doing some crazy marketing on Voice Marketplace yet.
Makes sense.
What have you found any uses that somebody's used that has surprised you at all, that you didn't expect that someone would actually use your technology for a certain type of project?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. People try to sing with our technology, and sometimes it can do some weird results, especially if it wasn't trained on singing, and it could sound very funny. Another good example of using our technology in quite different way would be using artifacts. And we need to understand that what we do here at respeacher, in our R&D team, we play around with different ideas, how to make our technology better in various ways. And this is like heavy R&D. 99% of ideas go to trash, because they produce not the result we want to achieve, like better sound, better speaker identity, easier way to create that. But we found out that for some people that create sounds, our artifacts could be gold, because they need to make stone speak. And that's cool use case, because how stone can speak in animation. So they need to imagine that. And they can use our artifacts, something we throw in our trash bin, for creating such cool stuff, say in animation, where they need to creatures or physical objects to produce sounds.
That's interesting.
Yeah. How far away are you from doing like having kind of like a real-time technology, like you were talking about, like a plugin for Zoom or Skype? Do you think that you're close to cracking that egg?
Yeah, we do. We have some progress. We had some significant progress over 2020 in that regard. And hopefully this year we would be releasing the first real-time prototype. Not sure if accent conversion would be there, but real-time voice conversion prototype could be.
Yeah, I mean, the accent conversion thing really I find very interesting, because when there's especially in America, there's so many racist people that if they call the call center and they suddenly get someone in India, they go bananas, right? And if that you, like selling it to like an IBM, for instance, where they can outsource entire call centers to other places that people may have accents, but they don't do it because of customer service issues. I mean, you can kind of shake up entire industries with this. Have you thought about that type of thing and what might happen?
We not just thought, we keep that in mind constantly. We just try to catch up with the technology. Mm-hmm. And that's great usage of our technology, because we change the balance. We give to countries that provide these services like India or Philippines more power, and we give more money to them, and that's fair. And they can speak good English. I mean, they can speak very right English. The issue could be just just an accent that for some reason is anticipated in the bad way, and that could be fixed using technology, and that's great.
Yeah, and people get insecurities around their accent too. And they, like, for example, I've known people that choose not to become public speakers because the accent is too much. They've had, negative reactions to it. So this actually opens the door for those type of people to have a second chance at becoming like a public speaker or a public figure that's, more widely accepted in America. Unfortunately, that's kind of how our culture is right now, that, if you have a heavy accent and people have trouble understanding it, then it's kind of viewed in a way that's not going to be beneficial to you growing an audience. And I think this is a pretty interesting thing. It also could be met with some backlash, as far as like whitewashing and things like that. You might hear like those kind of terms thrown around too. I would imagine that would eventually come into the conversation, but I really think that has a lot of potential for psychological benefits for people, and like you mentioned before, just opening up a whole new potential industry. Or like if you're outsourcing, it's like making it like an American call center, and just playing because of people's natural biases. You're eliminating those. So that's
exactly. And also there are many cases when people all around the world, they have health problem when they lost their voice to some extent, or their voice just doesn't sound for some reason, but they can speak, and that could be solved using technology, and that's great use case for our technology too.
Yeah, for
sure. Yeah, very. I mean, it's fascinating, and I can think of so many different cases for this. So how at this point are you still like do you have a list of people that you call? Because you actually reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, hey, this is my technology, which I thought was really awesome, that you're one of the primary people who developed the technology, and you're also doing kind of the sales as well, and which I think is really great. But how are you doing your marketing? How are you actually reaching out to people, finding the right people to market to on LinkedIn? How are you getting people to know about the technology just with your sales cycle?
Yeah, I mean, basically we have to deal with a very long sales cycle. So it could be like from 2 years to a couple of months. And it's very unpredictable sales cycle, because for many of the projects we did, we had to meet some particular need in our technology, and that didn't happen like on a daily basis in these companies. We have small sales team, quite small sales team, and the reason we have that, because as a startup we are quite limited in resources, and we try to put most of the money we have into technology development, because we understand how the technology could be improved and how it should be improved in the nearest future, because we have this feedback from our first clients. And we had to deal with some limited capacity in terms of the amount of projects we can handle over like single time. We were able to increase that, so our capacity is much bigger right now. And we are growing our sales team. And at this point, we have representative in LA. We have someone in Latin America as our representative. We are going to have more salespeople on board. But so far, I've been doing most of that because I want to build very right sales structure. I want to have everything organized in the way it should be organized, and then scale something that's already built. So that's what I actually were doing for the whole 2020. And I've been talking to most of clients, and that brings a lot of very valuable information for early stage startup when you develop something, when you are not just selling, but you also learn from your clients on a daily basis.
So you're actually getting the information and the feedback from potential clients when they say, oh, well, it would be really great if we could do this. And so you're, in a sense, you're also doing market research while you're doing the sales cycle as well.
Exactly, yeah. And we try to keep that all organized. We try to record everything to be able to address the request of the audience we talk to.
Yeah,
Well,
that makes sense. A lot of times you'll go to talk to a company like that and they'll come up with a totally different need for the technology that you didn't even think of. Because I know a few people that have started either tech or SaaS companies that when they learn a lot about what they need to features they need and things like that just from those conversations too.
So we're coming up to the end of the show, and if you want to find out more, you can go to respeacher. That's respeecher.com. We'll leave a link down below in the description, and you can learn more about it and the voice marketplace, which they're about to launch. But before we end the show, we always like to ask our guests one thing specifically, and since we are the Marketing Geeks, and we want to find out. I mean, you've got a pretty geeky technology that you're running here, but when you're not doing this, what are you geeky about right now? It could be like a movie, TV show, comic book, music, hobby. What is the thing that you are most geeked out about right at this moment?
Yeah, I guess right now I came to the point where I feel some physical limitations because I work all the time, so I need to be more focused on my health. And I'm geeky about how I sleep, so I try to make it as best as I can.
And do you have any techniques that you're using, or do you just get to bed early? Do you smoke a J and then drink a glass of wine and go to bed? That's what works for me.
Yeah, it actually took some time for me to make myself not to keep my cell phone close to me when I sleep. And when I wake up, that's also important. And also what helped, not to eat at least like 4 hours before you go to sleep. So that's what I found helpful.
Or after midnight if you're a gremlin.
I've tried that cell phone trick and I have not made it there yet. Trying to, keep that cell phone away from me at night, but usually it's within like 6 inches of me every day. So
yeah, I actually started putting my cell phone out of the room as well, and believe it or not, it actually helps. I am so honored, Alex Serdiuk. Thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate it, and good luck with the technology. I think you're going to do super well. And when you finally become a millionaire, come visit me in the Netherlands, man. We'll hang out.
Where else can we find you? Where else can we find you besides respeacher? Can we follow you on social media anywhere else that they can follow you?
Yeah, absolutely. On LinkedIn, that's the main sales channel.
All right.
Okay.
So we'll link to LinkedIn in the show description. So if you're listening to the podcast, go to the show notes, and we'll have a link to his LinkedIn subscription and to the respeacher website. Cool. Yeah,
very good. And with that, we're going to sign off of this live stream. But definitely check out the technology. Thank you so much again for being on the show. Just hang on real quick, and then we'll talk to you soon. Signing off. All right. Hold on 1 second, Alex. Don't go anywhere.
We're still live.
Yeah. I think we're still live.
Maybe. I actually got this one about 3 minutes or 4 minutes in.
Do what?
Share it to my personal page too. About 3 or 4 minutes in to when we started.
Oh, that's cool. So, cool.
Or a organic reach off the bat a little bit. No, I'm not seeing like a